Good day, I'm Dr. T and welcome to my office. So I'm currently reading Grading for Equity by Joe Feldman. Okay, I'm not going to say that too many times because I have struggled so much on that E word. Okay, so you've got equality, that's everyone is exactly the same, and let's try this, equability or You heard me say it once beforehand. It was in the picture. That one is basically fairness. So giving everybody what they need, not necessarily everyone the same. Now, of course, you can't really do everyone different. That gets you into a whole mess of hot water if you try and do that. And that puts you in a position of power that you really are not qualified to be in. So don't get me wrong, you don't want to be treating everyone differently, but you do want to be trying to treat everyone in a way that helps everyone where they're at. So kind of the core of universal design, which needs to be a video coming soon. Okay, so I'm reading the book. I like the core premise. If you've seen Zoe B's video, this is not one of her sources, at least not one that she listed. Boy, that's surprising. It's clearly coming in the exact same vein. So I'm guessing the author is going to be jumping in with ungrading and or specs grading or something like that towards the end. One of my thoughts on the book is I really want to know what your proposed solution is before you spend several chapters discussing the problems. I totally get discussing the problems for multiple chapters, but I want to see where this is going, and the author has not foreshadowed that. It's really annoying. I'm guessing ungrading. I'm not positive because I haven't finished the book. I'm only in chapter 5. Okay, so as I said, I've got thoughts. And I tend to come down on the negative side. That's not the best part of me. So I do apologize if this is going to sound a little bit overly critical. It's not meant to be, but it probably will sound like it because, yeah, I tend to sound like that. And I'm sorry. Okay, so once again, I probably agree with where the author is going. Not for sure, because I don't know where they're going, but I probably agree with that, at least to some degree. So the basic structure of the book is outlining a series of key problems with grading in our educational setup, which of course our educational system is not perfect by a long shot. And so just kind of going over a couple of them because they kind of, they stitch together, but basically each chapter is kind of a problem. And so one of the issues that's brought up and discussed, which it's like, I understand, I agree this is an issue, however, I think there's some big nuance that needs to be in here, is the idea of formative versus summative assessment, and formative assessment being used kind of in the ways of summative assessment. Okay, that was a mouthful. What am I talking about? Formative assessments are assessments that are helping the student learn. Doing something like homework, where they do their homework, they learn, hey, I got this wrong. Okay, let me try and get this right. Okay, I got it wrong. Okay, now I get it right. Well, the goal here is you really want the student to be able to get it wrong, right. Yay, get credit. You don't want the student to get punished for doing it wrong repeatedly. So if a student does it 5 times, they get it wrong, right, I think that was 5, then you want to, they got it right, they've learned it. You don't want to punish them for the 4 times they got it wrong. So this is kind of leading towards an idea of, well, maybe don't put formative assessment with a grade. And that's where I think the author is going. But there's a slight catch with that. I know from my personal experience, back 2001, yeah, over 20 years ago, good Lord. I was a freshman in college, my first year, and I was taking Calc 2. Yeah, fun class. The homework was ungraded. So you could do homework. I don't even think he collected it. I didn't do it. It's not graded. It's not part of my grade. I got other things to do. I passed that class with like a C, maybe C minus, I can't remember. Yeah, I'm quite certain I would have passed with more and had learned significantly more from that course, because there was a lot of stuff we covered that was just like, phew! Like, infinite sums, okay, I'm glad I took calculus in high school. Yeah, there was a lot that I really didn't get that I think had I actually done the homework, I probably would have actually learned. And that would have helped me later on. Maybe it would have helped me later on, to be honest. I don't use that much calculus, but you know, maybe it would have changed trajectories in my life. Who knows? Anyways, I should have done my homework, but I didn't because it was optional. And I believe a lot of my students are exactly the same way. You know, I definitely have a non-trivial cohort of students who, if there is a graded assessment that day in class, they will show up. If there isn't, they won't. It's not great, but, you know, that's kind of reality. And getting into things like internal motivation, well, how do I internally motivate someone? The answer is you don't. All I have is external. Grading is like the only tool I have. And this is one of the emphases that I don't think the author takes seriously enough, is that when it comes to tools, now the author is K-12, so things are different at K-12. But at least in higher ed, and I suspect at the latter parts of K-12, the grade is the only tool the instructor has. So if you want students to do the homework, you either grade it or they don't do it. At least that's been my experience. I used to use Mastering Chemistry, which is a Pearson product, which if I never have to use that again, that will be too soon. That needs to be another video. Just, not a fan. It was so buggy, such a nightmare, I couldn't actually assign grades. So I just had to give every student 100% on it because half the students struggled with various problems, not because they didn't understand the content, but because the problem was so bugged out. You know, there was one where they had to put on xenon hexafluoride and you couldn't actually put xenon on the page. Yeah. Well, the students still could do most of the questions. They just couldn't do all of them. And it was enough I couldn't actually assess them. Did they do the ones they could do? When it wasn't graded, they were getting a perfect no matter what? About 20% did. 20, 25%. The rest of the students did not. So this leads to a problem of the formative assessments are there for a reason. They're very valuable. But if they're not graded, then they just don't count. Now, one place the author might be going is something like the ALEX approach. So ALEX is I think it's ALEX. I hope it's ALEX. It's an online software system. And a couple other ones are kind of integrating this, where basically students are given, here's a question, get it right, moving on. Get it wrong? Try it again. Here's a hint. Get it wrong? Try it again. Here's a hint. Get it wrong? Try it again. And basically students can't progress with the homework until they've completed 3 of them in a row correctly. I think it's 3. It's something like that. And it's just got like an endless list of questions it keeps throwing at students. Well, if you're going to do that, that actually might make sense. And that probably would fit in with the author's ideas. And you know what? Where I can, I don't use ALEX, I use one by McGraw-Hill. I think it's McGraw-Hill. Achieve is the program I'm currently using. Whoever makes that. Boy, I'm going to have like blurbs all over here because I can't remember what I'm doing. It's late. No, it's not. I'm just tired. Anyways, where I have the option for my survey of chemistry class, I just don't have the option. The resources for GOB courses are just not there. However, for the principles course, Gen Chem course, yeah, it's a nice resource. And you know what? I'm starting to like this. This kind of fits in that idea. You're not punishing students for getting it wrong, but you are making sure that they need to get it in order to get all the points. So you're going to punish them for just not doing it. And then even with a lot of the online homework systems, you've got something like get it right on the first try, 100%, get it right on the second try, 95% plus. Hey, if you've got it wrong on 3 times in a row, call me. Well, don't call me, but email me, stop by my office, that kind of thing. So I think there's ways around this, but the author needs a bit more nuance because I can't just remove it from the grades altogether. That effectively just makes it optional. The other part that's kind of being discussed is more of the soft skills. If the student turns it in late, you take off points. Now you're punishing them for turning it late for, life happened. Or the student, turns it in all messy. They turn it improperly. Well, once again, if it's not part of the grade, it's optional. So do you turn it in all at the last minute? At a certain point, you need a little bit of order, otherwise you're never going to get things graded. There's a logistical issue here. The second issue is that a lot of these soft skills, they're not the core learning objectives for the class, but the things like turning things in on time, turning them in properly, following directions. They're essential, once again, for the logistics of the course, but they're also what a lot of business leaders are telling us are the most important things students can learn. I have to be honest with myself. Are the students ever going to balance another equation in their life? Maybe, probably not. The nursing students sure aren't. Are they going to need to be able to communicate clearly and do, critical thinking? Yeah, that's kind of a big deal. Are they going to need to be able to make deadlines happen? Yeah, that's going to be a big deal. So that's not chemistry, but it is stuff they need to be learning. And summary sports is going to be much more important than the chemistry I can teach them. So should that be removed from the grade altogether? Wait, that's more important than the rest of the content. So that's another issue. How do you handle this one? And so once again, I'm hoping the author goes into suggestions and more of solutions than talking about problems. This is, once again, they're laying out a whole bunch of problems. I understand how they're setting up their argument. They're arguing that there's a big need for a change, but I really wish I had a clue what change they were going for, which, once again, I think is ungrading, which is like a really cool approach unless you have a rather large number of students. And by rather large, I mean in the several dozens, in which case it's logistically a nightmare. Okay, so that's kind of my one set of issues, is things that are not the summative assessments. It actually gets to me kind of this feeling when I'm reading a lot of the grading reform of moving to a system, especially when they're setting up the argument and here's the problems, like the obvious solution is going to a system that has a semester worth of education, whether it be lecture, formative assessments, everything, but that's completely unassessed and therefore by definition optional. So students may just kind of skip it. And then afterwards, a single standardized, and I'll get to why I said standardized here, a single standardized assessment, maybe with the ability to repeat or something, at the end that's summative. I believe this was very common in the United Kingdom, very common just in general in the past. It's falling out of favor because this does not lead to better outcomes for the majority of people. This is not helping everyone. It's not building towards equity. Yay, I said it right. It's not building towards equity because students come in at different places. Students are more mature or less mature. We see this especially with online asynchronous courses. You've got a lot of mature students who handle them very well. You've got a lot of students who don't have that level of maturity, who basically wait till the last minute and discover that you can't learn a semester's worth of content in an afternoon, or more likely an evening. So it's like you're building an argument for a solution that I'm pretty sure is the opposite of what you want to make with some of these arguments. Once again, I would really like to know where we're going with this argument because it's been very persuasive that it should have a single summative assessment at the end and no other grading. Very persuasive so far for this one. Once again, I don't think that's the author's goal. Okay, as I mentioned, standardized, one of the author's kind of comments, one of the early chapters, is how different classes weight things differently, how different classes basically have different learning objectives, soft skill versus hard skill. And as such, a C in one class can be radically different than a C in another class, or one student would get one grade in one class and a completely different grade in a different class. And that is a legitimate problem. You do need, within sections and across time, some standardization. You do need, a C student needs to be a C student. The other issue that gets brought up, and I really 100% agree with this one, is that you can get a student that passes a course barely, so kind of the C range, that doesn't have mastery of content. And this is potentially a big danger. And this is one the author brings up in one of the chapters. Especially doing things like soft skills, etc., where the student never quite masters the content, that they kind of, they get all the homework done, they just don't really know what they're doing, kind of thing. And then they move on to the next class, and in the next class, they are not prepared for that class, and all of a sudden, they start falling hopelessly behind, start snowballing like crazy. And so you've got to watch out for that one. And yeah, I totally get behind that one. You need some form of summative assessment that's going to make sure that doesn't happen. Which once again leads to this really great argument for a standardized, so all the assessments are the same, single, final, all or nothing stakes summative assessment, which is, once again, I don't think a good thing, but the book is making a really compelling argument for this. So it's one of those, like, I don't think this is where the author wants to go, but the author is really doing a very good job with this argument. That said, I'm only on chapter 5. So hopefully I figure out where the author actually wants to go later on in this book. If you hadn't guessed, this is really annoying. Okay, yeah, I think those were my major rants so far. Overall, I'm enjoying the book. It was recommended to me by one of the presenters at BCCE this summer. So I wanted to jump in on this one. Once classes start, it's hard to slog through anything that's not, grading. Anyways, I will see you in future videos. Have a wonderful day. Good day, I'm Dr. T and welcome to my office. So I'm currently reading Grading for Equity. Good day, I'm Dr. T and welcome to my office. So I'm currently grading... Good day, I'm Dr. T and welcome to my office. So I'm currently... Good day, I'm Dr. T and welcome to my office. So I'm currently reading Grading for Equity.